Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Coalition podcast. I'm on the European tour, albeit in a static location, not traveling unfortunately. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Alex Festa from SUSE. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Welcome. Hi, Jay.
It's great
everyone.
Great to have you on the show. I'm really looking forward to this session. Apologies we can't be face-to-face in Munich as we planned, but hopefully this is just as good for everyone else.
Well, that definitely, you need to have, again, to do the tour to Munich, and we have to have a beer then.
Yeah.
That's a perfect excuse.
A Bavarian beer, definitely. For those listening in to this recording, this is obviously a remote podcast. So unfortunately, we may hit some audio issues along the way with dropouts or quality of sound. Please bear with us. Unfortunately, it can't be face-to-face like we would have liked. So as I say, I'm on a European tour and I'm speaking to product leaders and gaining insights, knowledge and experience to share with you the Product Coalition global community. Now, this tour and every single podcast is dedicated to raising awareness and support for the bushfire affected communities and wildlife in Australia. So if you enjoy this episode, please show your support for 3 different amazing causes you can choose from actually over at bushfire.productcoalition.com. If you've just discovered the Product Coalition, welcome. We're a global product community with over 500,000 readers, 6,000 Slack members, and thousands of podcast listeners. You can find out more about the community over at platform.productcoalition.com. Now, before we get stuck in, I do need to give a big thank you to some brands and individuals that have made significant donations to the bushfire fundraiser that I mentioned. First up is UserPilot. UserPilot is a code-free user onboarding and adoption tool designed especially for product management teams. UserPilot helps to increase conversion, user retention rates and reduce churn by guiding new users to their first aha moment with interactive walkthroughs, contextual product tours and onboarding checklists. It allows product managers to build fully customizable behavior-triggered in-app experiences with a simple visual editor. Head over to userpilot.com to book your demo and grab a free trial. Shobit Chug is a Google product manager, and Shobit helps product managers become product leaders and have careers they can be proud of. Head to intentionalproductmanager.com and sign up for Shobit's free class on the habits that turn product managers into exceptional product leaders and help them move through their careers fast. Product-led teams like Mixpanel and Flexport know that a best time to capture engagement is when a user is already inside the product. That's why they use Chameleon to drive feature adoption, build onboarding flows, and gather user feedback. You can give it a go at trychameleon.com/success. I'd also like to thank Rich Mironoff and Chris Miles as individuals with big donations for the bushfire fundraiser. Alex, let's get stuck in.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be chatting about creating engaged teams as a product manager, which I'm looking forward to working through with you. Before we get started, Alex, do you mind sharing with the audience a bit about you and your product career?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from what I'm doing nowadays. So I'm a product manager, a senior product manager at SUSE. SUSE is a German company. If the name doesn't ring a bell to you, probably ring the bells the fact that we are the longest maintainer of Linux worldwide. So when basically Linus Torvald released Linux, 3 years after, SUSE was founded, and we started actually to provide the first enterprise Linux operating system there. Now, it's a more than 28 years old company at this point, and guess what I'm doing there? Artificial intelligence. That definitely is the newborn, and it's the newest things out in the world. Now, it's pretty interesting because AI, usually we start thinking about AI like, startups and application layers like NLP, bots, and so on. But when it comes to enterprise companies like SUSE, AI is a completely different topic. It's infrastructure. It's solving everything that it comes before you release that application. So in really 30 seconds, what you can explain is like, think of AI like a big iceberg. Right. So you see that the top of the iceberg is out of the water. That is the shiny AI. That is your latest bot, your digital assistant, and so on. But think about everything that is under the water. This big part of the iceberg, this is an infrastructure challenge. It comes from collecting the data, the way you manipulate the data, you store the data, the way you build the frames and the model you use, how do you transform them in containers or pipeline or whatever you use them to basically provide a model up to the production. So all those challenges, this is what I'm doing there. As a product manager, I drive the strategy from SUSE and drive the strategy through AI to provide it to our customer and partners. So that's me. What else about me? Well, I'm Italian, and that's a big issue for Jay today because every Italian, if I start talking, I never stop. And so that's absolutely a big issue for him. That means that this podcast probably will endure like 8 hours. I'm a cook. Actually, I'm a professional cook. You didn't know that. That's a pretty surprise, Jay. Yeah. Cool. So I basically followed a professional course for 3 years ago. And I basically took a degree as a professional cook. So as a backup plan, just in case, and that's me. Living in Turin, Italy. If you don't know Turin, you probably heard about, Juventus, if you're a soccer football fan, or you know it for Fiat Chrysler, the automotive company. But also if you believe in God, you're Christians in case, Turin is where the Holy Shroud from where Jesus was kept after that he was crucified. He's here in Torino. Right. So you can you can see that. Yeah, that's some good news about an excuse to come your next European tour. Absolutely have to come to Torino at this point. That's me.
Even just to get to a Juventus game for the football, that would be an amazing experience. I definitely would like to have done that. In fact, when I was planning the whole tour, my plan was, I'm a big soccer fan. I enjoy my sport. So was to pick up a team and get to a stadium in every city that I visit. So, cool. I was hoping to get to an FC Copenhagen game. I picked them as my team, and I had a tough choice in Germany between the Berlin teams and Munich. I didn't want to jump on the Bayern Munich bandwagon really, but we'll see. I've yet to make some choices for teams in Germany.
If you decided to come down to Torino, we absolutely have to record let's say a special version of that podcast. Yeah, directly at the stadium.
Yeah, nice. That'll be some atmosphere, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that introduction and your world in artificial intelligence right now. Can I ask, has that always been a part of SUSE? Like artificial intelligence got a lot of light in the last sort of 5 years, particularly, but before then, was that always there?
No, absolutely not. That's one of the challenges of many enterprise companies, by the way. Right. I'm speaking mainly around SUSE, but probably that can be applied to any other enterprise company. The point was this new technology, let's call it like that for the sake of conversation, this new wave comes in and partners start to request it and customers start to request, you should have something. In a nutshell, it's like people come to you as enterprise companies and say, I'd like to have your product more smarter. They should predict their failures. They should give me some insights before time. And then the company need to recognize this need and need to set up itself to actually satisfy it. And that's where people like me jumps in. The problem is there, the challenge is there, is that you're talking about a company that is very well structured, that is used to do its job with different timeline. This is not a startup. Especially we are doing operating systems. So, the life cycle of product is longer than other kind of companies. But when it comes to AI, it's a completely different paradigm. You move in a market that is really fast. You need to release as often as possible. And it changed especially this time. And so you have to, balance and combine those challenges within the existing organization. So SUSE decided to invest on AI 3 years ago, more or less. But it took more than 1 year just to understand actually what they want to do. And that's why at some point they hired me to drive this strategy in a completely different fashion. They want me actually to drive something from scratch and fit in the story.
Okay, thank you. Do you mind sharing how did you get into AI? What was the starting point for developing skills and knowledge and experience in that space?
Yeah. Well, it was pretty interesting. Curious enough, I've always been interested in AI, even if I didn't know that it was AI. So I give you a story that is pretty funny. So when I was 16 years old, so it's a long time, really long time. I used to have so I built on my own a sort of a really simple software and doing a test. The test was basically, in my mind at that point was basically, I want to build a system that was able to basically reply to your questions in a smart way. So what we call it today an NLP. And my usual test, it was actually to interview people and just look at them straight forward, say nothing, just green. And that's all I said. It was like green and wait. Now, it was too interesting because you build a model, and the model was like when you say something like green to a person, and a person that has no context, your brain starts to try to figure out the context. So you reply with something like, I don't know, people reply with grass, other people reply with cross light, and etc. And then you keep saying green, and they try to add the context or to figure out the context. Now, this allowed me to build the system that was this model that says, okay, if you don't have a context, this is the list of things you can pick up to create your own context. Otherwise, you can ask questions to figure out the context. And then I put that. So that led me actually to try to know more. And then I figure out there was existing something called like fuzzy logic and all the mathematical around that. And that's where I started basically to interest in AI. Now, life is funny because I move on in my job career. I started as a sysadmin. So from time to time, so I ended up in a company doing identity management. It's called One Identity. And guess what? We acquired a company there in a merge acquisition that actually has data scientists. So I could hook it up again with data science.
Cool.
And then I was finally, in a position to do again my job. And that's where I am today. So it's a long story that is made by the fact that, AI is since ever. We think it's a new thing, but actually it exists since very long time. And that's why people like me actually also be interested, even if they didn't know that it was called AI at that point.
Could you share a little bit around what types of jobs does AI do at SUSE for you that a human couldn't do?
Think about, let's say I pick up one of our products, let's say storage. We made a storage based on open source. You have to think about, just to put you some context, SUSE is an open source company. That means that everything we do is open source. So you have let's say the SUSE product that you pay for subscription for, but also you got the open source product or the open source project we maintain or we collaborate upstream. Ceph as a storage is the open source part of it. We got other product, Linux, of course, and so on. So in the case of storage, think about you have a storage and you have this big cluster, you move data there, and probably you have two typical use cases there. One is you like to know if one of your multi-cluster nodes, multi-instances is going to fail for any reason, and what's the reason before time. This is predictive maintenance if you want to predict failures. The other one is actually try to get an optimization, so a dynamic optimization. Like, again, it could be on storage, but it could be even on Kubernetes is something where we work. We are an upstream maintainer for Kubernetes as well. Think about predictive workload. Where I'm going to move this workload, on which node, why I shouldn't move this workload to this node, maybe because it's going to fail. So AI at the core is this at SUSE, is basically make products and make solutions smarter from that point of view. The other point where we are working on is making life of a data scientist easier. So one thing we recognize is that nowadays, one of the challenges data scientists have that they have to learn a lot of technology to do their job. But at the core, again, they're mathematics. They're doing mathematics. They should focus on this. They should focus on building models. They shouldn't focus on learning how to configure Kubernetes or Kubeflow or other platform like that, how to manage workloads, how to create a container. That's not part of their job role or shouldn't be part of the job. So what we are making, and we will release it pretty soon, a solution like that is make data science life easier in a way where they don't see the complexity and they just focus on their real job role, making great mathematical models. So that's what we are doing right now. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's always insightful to learn the jobs of AI, and particularly in an environment and an enterprise like this. Now, SUSE is an enterprise company, but as you mentioned, it's an enterprise company with a different sort of leading open source for decades. Could you talk to me a little bit around what are some of the pros and cons of working in an enterprise company like that I imagine feel some sort of burden to maintain the open source world and continue to contribute to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty interesting because so from one side, we are an enterprise company. And as an enterprise company, you have to be really, well organized. You need to be really consistent on what you're delivering because you have a long list of big customers there that you have to satisfy. And you cannot release, easy products there. You cannot try and attempt to do something because if it doesn't work, basically you will have big troubles there. On the other hand, you're open source, and the nature of open source is try new things, is try to do things, and you have to collaborate open source. And so there's this kind of balance, especially in engineers organization, where from some point of view, you have to look at your product from the eyes of someone that has to sell these products. But at the same time, the same person should look at this product like, how can I create more value around this product from an open source perspective? How can I collaborate with the community and bring them something new? So that leads actually to have an organization that it can appear sometimes even slow because it's so well organized. It can appear that sometimes it's really too much structure, and then becomes, between really brackets, I call it the troubles of a AI product manager, because the product manager in AI act like a startup. And so when you jump on these, you have to basically to change completely the paradigm. You have to change completely the way you approach things. In AI, and if you look at it as a startup, you fail, you try fast, you fail fast, and you learn from there. And so you have to basically work with different cross-functional teams to revert completely the organization internally and try to keep up people from different teams to build something that is completely new, is innovation. And that's absolutely why I love so much my role now. That is basically about, you have to learn how to engage the people to the point where you completely revert the organization, you completely change the organization, even if those people keep doing their job. And so there's not really necessarily, a team assigned. There's not necessarily someone actually, but it's more about people that literally come to you and say, oh, I want to do this with my products. Please tell me how I can do that. Please tell me how we can do that. What are the needs we need, who we need to talk to, how we can build that. And that's the engagement, the part of product manager, the secret sauce of a product manager, as I call it. That is where you have to be really creative in that. And that's basically the life of an open source company that is also an enterprise company. That, again, is pretty challenging. It's pretty different. I come from a closer software company where everything is under an IP. So when you come here, you absolutely have to learn a completely different way to approach things. Whatever you do, it will be open to others to use it. So,
right.
But that comes with its own benefits as well. I expect the ability to have a network to peer review changes and peer review code, and for others to contribute, allows for more rapid development as well.
But also give you an unexpected diversion. Because, for example, you have a vision, you have a plan, you set up the plan, but because this is open to the community, sometimes community decides something differently. And then all of a sudden you see that your product is evolving in something that you didn't expect at the point. You have to adapt there and actually to learn. And that's why, working with cross-functional teams and engage them to the point where they literally they follow your ideas is great, because you can adapt to the community and it can help your teams to adapt to the new changes and bring, again, value for everyone.
It's certainly a very different dynamic. I mean, for most product managers, they're using the community around a product to help inform the way the roadmap shapes up. But in this instance, the community can literally grab the product and take it on its own roadmap, completely out of your control in its own direction. How do you balance that when it comes to then making decisions of what you bring back into your enterprise software?
Yeah, so and that's a great question, because that's exactly the problem. Right. It's like, so again, for the sake of the conversation, let's make things simpler. But so community keep throwing stuff at you. Community keep taking decision, throwing new features and decide for new features. But at some point, you have to balance them, because you cannot pick all them up and put it in the product, and you have to take the decision. And you said a few seconds ago that usually product manager use community as a feedback, as a voice, user voice, to understand where the market is going. But because community is so involved in the product, there's a big risk that actually all of us becomes blind. Oh, we want desperately this feature because everybody loves this feature, but then when you look at the market, not necessarily this feature is successful. So that's the hack to balance that you have to do. That is more about split the vision in what the product is evolving to. That is the open source community, with instead of what your idea of the product should be. That need to be consistent with what the community is doing, but at the same time need to be toward your partners, toward your customers, and be them. So what I'm doing, for example, myself, is more about I'm listening to the community and the user voice, and then I'm having different conversation with the partner and customers and trying to balance them and see where both of them have a common point. Those common points typically tells me that is the direction that both of them they expect from my products. Of course, what you can see is typically that the community version of a product probably evolve faster, because in our case, it's not just a matter of bring on the new feature, but it's also a matter of understanding how we can position the product with this new feature, how we can, if the product change, how we can actually change it accordingly in terms of not just selling, but in terms of how the customer perceive it. So I was speaking about, making a product smarter. Well, the easy question is like, you can make a product smarter in many ways. The problem is that what's the right use case your customer would expect? I can put their digital assistant that basically ping you and say, oh, your nodes this node on your Kubernetes cluster is going to fail. It seems like, a catchy feature, but is this really valuable? Right. Is this something that partners expect? How my partners can eventually use that to make more value for themselves? How my customer would use it? So those questions are the typical product management question that you need to solve. Right. And the community somehow helps that, but sometimes actually can make your life a little bit tougher, because you can, as I said before, all of us can become blind pretty quickly.
Can I ask, how does the community, or how do you manage the community response when you take a feature or an improvement that the community has developed and you bring it into the commercial product? How is that handled? Is that celebrated by the community, or do they see it as they're doing the hard work for you? How do you manage that?
Well, so there's not really enough something like, whatever you do in the community will be reflecting the products in terms of, oh, thank you to the community. It's more about, is a common ground. For example, the one thing that is really, it's still quite weird from some point of view to me is like, so in many cases we collaborate with what are our competitors. So we collaborate with Red Hat or right. Canonical.
Okay.
And that's, if you come from a closer software company, this is weird. It's like if Microsoft and Google basically collaborate each other on a Microsoft product. That is like, oh, why? But that's the nature of open source. So you all join. You recognize the effort to anyone in the community, and you basically pick up sometimes you pick up the same new features or the same new improvement in all the products. What we do is basically we always pay a tribute to the community in our products to remind everyone that even if it's a different name, this product is there because of this open source project.
Right, nice.
So, for example, one of our UI in one of our products, called it SUSE Cap, is based on an open source project called Stratos UI. And it's really clear when you use the product that we use Stratos as a project.
Right.
And we spend a lot of effort and energy to remind people that if it is there, it's because of this project. It is there because we have these great communities and great open source product that we can leverage on. So we transparently say to people, we don't invent anything. We simply, reuse something that the community built, and we make it a little bit better or a little bit more consistent or a little bit more stable for those customers that look for this enterprise kind of approach. If you want, if I can use an analogy, it's like, water. You can drink water directly in every home, almost every house, let's say in Europe, if we think in Europe and US, but you basically go out and buy water. And why you buy water? Why you buy still water when you can have it for free at home? Because what you're looking for is a specific feature or a specific kind of quality. What you're looking for is that this still water went through, some test. So I know that it's clean. I know that it's been filtered and so on. And this is why I buy water. And open source and companies like SUSE are exactly the same. You can have, free water. You just go out and pick up the same project on the community, or you want to have a high quality version of it. And this is what we provide there.
Great.
And that's the way we work. Yeah.
Great analogy. Makes it very clear, actually. So we've talked a lot about engagement with the community. Let's talk about engagement internally. You mentioned that you're a remote working business for a large part as well, and you're an enterprise, and you've been around 28 years. So how do you manage internal engagement?
So again, it's like, I tell you what I've done at SUSE. So I joined SUSE, and literally they told me, okay, you have to drive the AI strategy here. You have to build something around AI. We have no idea yet about what, but you have to basically do something. Cool. And okay, you can have a team, but my first question was like, who in this company knows about AI? Because, I'm super happy that an executive tells me, oh, you have to build a product around AI, but actually the people I'm looking for are probably engineers. So how can I grab them? And are they interested in AI? Because maybe I will figure out that these people, they don't care at all about my stuff. So how do I create engagement? So the first things was actually to have a creative way to create engagement. And my way was basically to set up a regular monthly call that basically we call it artificial intelligence flash talk. And the concept of flash talk was pretty easy. So I give 30 minutes to anyone in engineering organization to provide any kind of presentation, demo, talk, conversation around AI, whatever they feel like. If nobody actually can show up, I can do that for them. And 10 minutes each. So it was strict time, really high pressure, but you are free to go to do whatever you want. And I start that really spreading out emails and conversation via the internal chat and said, oh, do you want to participate? Do you want to talk about something? Do you want to talk anything? So we got really completely different results. We discovered, for example, that we had a guy in the maintenance team that actually was a data scientist. And he did a predictive model for our management, for our maintenance team. And it was absolutely unexpected. Now, what actually did this flash chat we make? Well, it created a sort of a wave where people start to join and start to talk about this and start to basically get there and say, oh, I just read this great PDF, this great article around these specific frameworks, and that's it. And that's create a sort of movement. It's an internal movement. It's cross-functional. And actually you start get people that pay attention to what you are saying and what you are building. And that is where you start to pitch your story. You start there engaged around the topic, and then you can engage back them to say, oh, by the way, I'm thinking doing this, and that. And they give you feedback. They are your first customers. And then you engage other kind of functional teams. Like, for example, at some point we open up and we start to work with marketing, and we start to work with sales and pre-sales. Again, with the same idea. That was like, I'm not trying to sell you my story. I'm trying just to understand if you like the idea about doing something around AI. And I want to hear your ideas. And this openness and this, way to provide and give feedback and receive feedback from them actually allows you to understand how you can work and who you can work with to be your products. And literally, those kind of moments we have internally now. Basically, we have like chats with hundreds of people there that's speaking about AI completely in let's say, on their own. They simply reach out to me when they have something they consider a good idea. But is amazing as you got people that literally do side project out of their daily job just to do something to show you and say, okay, I did this. Are you interested? And that's the engagement, how you engage people internally. Don't expect people actually, to come to you immediately. You have to go there, try to, find their passions and leverage these.
With what you've just said there, for me, there's actually a lot of overlap between that and the open source community approach. It's all around letting people in, taking their feedback on, taking a balanced view to what you're hearing, and maybe for product managers out there listening, even in closed source products, take an open source approach to managing your product and your community internally, and have that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about myself as a collector. That's who I am. I'm open. I can tell you my ideas, but I'm open to listen to you. That's what a product manager should do all the time. You are a listener. You are a collector. You go outside, inside. It's no matter. You simply go to people and really pose a simple question that is like, tell me what you think about this. And people will react, and people will start to share. And, there's many times where eventually those ideas, nothing new. Maybe those ideas, something that doesn't really fit your story, the story you have in mind. But in most cases, you will basically see that people brings on the tables really great, innovative ideas. That again, maybe you don't have the time frame, you don't have resources to do so, but they basically keep growing your story. And that helps you. That's why, for example, one of the trick of product manager and advice I can give to especially young product managers: don't be shy to meet customers, meet past partners. Don't be shy to go to conferences and talk to people. Be engaged. I'm thinking about the Slack channel for Product Coalition. The Slack channel is amazing. There's hundreds of thousands of people there. Be engaged. Go there. Talk to people. Be open. Because those are the user voice you're looking for. This is where you learn from others. This is where you learn, especially about the product you have in mind. If you don't talk to people, you will never build any great product. Because the great products are a result of what people are thinking and what people are expecting. And you cannot know that if you don't reach them out first.
Great advice. In an organization that it is an enterprise and is quite old, like Suse, I imagine there is a hierarchy. Can I ask, how do you engage with an executive differently, if at all, to colleagues and peers around you?
Yeah, that's the piece of advice I learned over years. So first of all, you cannot talk the same language to different kind of stakeholders, let's call it like that. I mean, if you're presenting your idea to an executive, whether you're presenting an idea to an engineer or marketing or a sales rep, you have to provide a different language. Even the time could be completely different. You have to always keep in mind that in an enterprise company, executive has really short times. It's not because they don't pay attention. They pay a lot of attention, but they are so busy that often you end up having like 5-10 minutes. You have one single shot. So the first piece of advice is that rehearse. Whatever you're going to present to whoever you're going to present, be really clear in what you're going to present as a story. Be clear, be able actually to explain your story, whether it is in 30 seconds, 5 minutes, or 1 hour, because that's the language you're looking for. The second thing is that pay attention to the message you're giving. An executive not necessarily doesn't want the details of the technicalities of your products and how you will basically build the next application and so on. You want to understand, the potential of a product. You want to understand how the product is going to grow up in 6 months, in 1 year, in 3 years. That's the kind of the information they need. While instead, when you talk to engineers or you talk to technical people, the language is completely different. They want to have the details. They don't want to get lost in, how do you sell it? Or how do you support it? And so on. They want the details and they want to be covered. And that's the second piece of advice. Don't let yourself to be dragged over to this kind of conversation too much. I mean, don't get lost in the details with engineers. Don't get lost in a position where, we need to everything be set up. You have to keep being agile. Keep focus on the minimal things that you need to provide, your minimal viable products. Do that, and then move on. Same when you basically talk to executives. Again, be frank, be transparent, be real in terms of give a piece of reality. This is what we're going to do. This is just the minimal features we will set up so you can sell it. Then we will move on. And don't be shy. Again, if you have to write an email to an executive, if you've just been hired since 3 days, don't be shy. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to spam your executive, because that's probably a different story, but don't be shy to reach out to executive. Talk to your manager eventually first. That's always good, rule of thumbs, but go there, explain your ideas, because if you don't do that, they will never hear or they will never know that actually you have brilliant ideas there. And that's how you basically move into the hierarchy of an enterprise company.
Some great advice there. I know from conversations I've had with execs, I think they're actually more surprised if a product, particularly a product manager or a senior product manager, hasn't introduced themselves when they join the business, because it's a senior role. There's a lot of responsibility in the role, and you're fully entitled to introduce yourselves to executive, and if anything, you should be. For those listening, my tactic for rehearsal is actually run a webinar for one. So grab your presentation, hit record on your screen recording software, turn the webcam on, run a webinar for one, talking through the presentation, watch it back and learn.
Yeah, and I mean, well, if you're lucky, you work with a company like SUSE, for example. And give another story about that. So SUSE every year does what we call the Hack Week. Right. So the Hack Week is a 1 week where we offer all our engineer organization, actually everyone in the organization, to spend 1 week in a personal project, doing something that could be anything, and is open to anyone. So anyone in the community can join someone from SUSE for 1 week and spend time there. Wow. So for example, in this Hack Week, that is this year, we spend 1 week in a cross-functional team to build one of the products we are going to build around AI. And guess what? I had some executives actually asking me to join. Because of the time they cannot join for the full week, but actually they asked it to be, updated on this, because the first thing is they are humans like us. Don't be shy for that. They are humans like that, like you mentioned. Maybe just a webinar or whatever. Just let them know, because they are humans like that. They don't know anything, and they are surprised, and they expect us as a product manager to, reach on them and say, here's what I'm thinking we should do, because we know the market, because we know where the market is going. That's our role. Our role is actually to drive companies through the market and say, this is the next big product or next big feature we have to do, because that will make our company successful.
Brilliant. I've got a final question for you, Alex.
Yep.
You mentioned you're a professional chef and a professional product manager in AI. Do those two worlds ever combine? Do you ever use an AI model to predict oregano recipes or anything like that?
Well. So here's the story. So the final test to be graduated as a chef basically was actually to prepare an entire dinner for the committee. Basically, there was actually graduates. So we will be splitting, in parties. So I was responsible with my team to make the first course. Now the beauty of this is, of course, you have to synchronize with the other teams, because you cannot go out before the appetizer. You need to be in time, otherwise the second course will be late and everything will mess it up. And so I was speaking to people and I literally tell them like, okay, look guys, I know that this is something weird, but we need a backlog and we need to actually prioritize stuff. And they were like looking at me like, what you're talking about? So, trust me, I know what I'm doing here. Just follow the task. I will put there on a piece of paper a list of tasks, and then I will do what I call features. Actually, that is like the sauce, and I will assign those. Just do that. But actually, if you think about that, it's exactly the same. A chef basically has to manage different cross-functional teams. Everyone is responsible for a different piece of that, and they need to sync to serve multiple people at the same time. And every single plate that goes out from the kitchen need to be exactly the same like the other one. So you have to learn and repeat all the time. And that's actually product management in the end.
Goes to show it's all about the mindset, not the job title.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
And that's why I love cooking and I love product management.
Great. Can I ask, you got a favorite dish that you enjoy churning out of your backlog?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, so it's a little different. It's a little bit hard to basically explain in English, but let's say it's meat that actually is overcooked on the wine, on a Piemontese wine, is brasato al barolo. Basically, you got this meat and you overcook it. Overcook it means over 3-6 hours on the wine until the meat melt. Literally, it's literally melt in your mouth, and it has this and the wine becomes this really thick sauce. So basically, you got this sauce that has a combination of it's not alcoholic anymore at that point.
Right. Okay.
And it's typical from my place, and it's absolutely great. And anyone, I'm on the Slack channel, so anyone want the recipe, want to know, just reach me out on the Slack channel, and we'll be more than happy to talk about food and share recipes.
That's it. Maybe we do need a product manager's chefing channel on Slack. Definitely. Thanks so much for your time, Alex. This has been really interesting to talk through. I've certainly learned a lot from you this morning. So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you to you, Jay, and thank you very much for this opportunity. It was really great. And Product Coalition, as always, is really a great time.
I appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much. For those listening in, hope you enjoyed this podcast as well with myself and Alex Festa. If you have, please remember all the time I'm committing here is to raising awareness and funds for the bushfire affected communities of Australia. If you'd like to support either the volunteer firefighters, the wildlife or the National Bushfire Fund of Australia, you can do so over at bushfire.productcoalition.com. Until the next episode, thank you for listening.